I highlighted at this committee, specifically with the minister, the state of living quarters at CFB Kingston, specifically the Canadian Forces School of Communications and Electronics. With the government shoveling money out the door to high-priced consultants who are making more than both the uniformed members, certainly the non-commissioned members who are staying in those accommodations that I referenced, and your members who'd work in these facilities, does that have a negative impact?
Around Christmas time, I received a phone call from the local president there who told me that one of our members was put in the hospital in a medically induced coma. And it was because they suspected that he had contracted Legionnaire's disease. And so shortly thereafter, it was confirmed, and we found Legionella in the workplace. And now that member is a double amputee as a result of this, for just trying to go to work. And so, is it a negative impact on their morale? You bet it is.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
It's shocking that it has come to this sort of level. Just absolutely shocking and disgraceful, to be quite blunt. Investments to improve the morale in the space? Certainly. However, we're getting another report. And this is what national defense does. We get another report and a report after that and a report after that. At one point,
sorry, Madam
they
Wigner,
have to action the report.
Can you quickly wrap up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Quickly. Go ahead.
So at one point, they have to action these reports. They have to do something with it, not just continue to look for what fits the narrative or goes to their pre-designed destination. And so continuing to look for other ways of addressing this isn't the problem.
Okay,
the problem
thank
is
you.
actually doing something.
Chair, just if I may, I think that I can comfortably say that all members of the committee express their, their sorrow for your member, and that's terrible, and I'm so sorry that happened to them, and want to offer my sympathy and sympathy to you.
Thank you.
If I could sort of switch back to at the Mckinsey and contracts, what kind of expertise does outsourcing let the government access that it doesn't have in-house?
I wouldn't know what they do, because whenever I go for an ATIP to find out this information, I either get no response or it's so heavily redacted it's nearly impossible to find out. And some of these outsourced contracts have our own members at, so we try to gather both sides of information and compare them together so that we can figure out what the contract's supposed to hold.
Some of the McKinsey contracts were sole sourced due to the proprietary nature of McKinsey & Company's offerings, for which there were no resellers. Do you believe that this is an acceptable reason for sole sourcing?
National Defense likes to sole source a lot of contracts. I question the validity of the rationale for doing so from time to time.
Thank you. Reservists have always been expected to hold a regular job. Do you believe reservists should be blocked from all D&D contracts, or are there circumstances in which they can do contract work with the department without being in a conflict of interest?
So we have a number of reservists that come in and work with National Defense. I don't know why we would hire them as a contractor when we can use their skill set as a reservist within National Defense.
Does our regime incentivize the concealment when problems are discovered?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to ask you a question in regards to something that we heard from the president of the Treasury Board. And what we heard from the president was that the percentage of government expenditures for professional services has remained relatively consistent with the size of the public service. In other words, they're contracting out for services remains the same with the size of the public service. Do you agree with that statement? Do you believe that the proportion of outsourced labor is relatively the same as the public service, or is it outpacing the size of our public servants?
I think that it's much higher than it needs to be. I think that we could have the work done by public servants who are just as well trained, who are even more experienced and even more aware of the needs of the department. And we could be managing it so much better than just going to the contracting piece. I think that we have a challenge in that most of our management are military members, and while they are excellent in their responsibilities to the CAF, I've never met a military member who enlisted because they wanted to manage public servants. And so as a result of that, it's very easy to move towards a contracting out position as opposed to trying to build up the workload of having to manage.
Thank you. The Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, which represents IT workers at National Defence, did an analysis of 194 national defence tenders between January of 2018 and September of 2020. And what was noted was that there were 151 grievances filed for outsourced work. And the reasons for contracting out that were given were that there was no skill set in-house, there were recruitment and retention issues, and the lengthy and complex federal staffing process. And maybe you've touched on some of that already. But I guess my question to you would be, has your union filed any grievances related to outsourcing?
We have not filed any grievances because we weren't able to get the Treasury Board to agree to allow us to bring that language into our collective agreement as it is with PIP's collective agreement.
Okay, thank you.